I think at one time we had 90 people on that site, somewhere around there, 80, 90 people, running 24 hours a day, in the mountains, treacherous terrain.
Where will the next generation of mining equipment operators, managers, and leaders come from? How do mining operators and contractors not only attract talent, but retain employees? These are only just a few of the topics covered in this episode of The Crownsman Show. Good morning and welcome to episode 49. Today we are joined by Keaton Turner. He is the president of Turner Mining Group. Now before we get started, let's thank our sponsors. We are sponsored by Savinoy Equipment. If you need anything from ball mills to conveyors, to trommel wash plants, and even electrical, go to savinoyequipment.com. While you're there, you can check out their new equipment line of ST trommels and high-G concentrators. Visit savinoyequipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. We are also sponsored by PowerZone. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with PowerZone. Visit them at powerzone.com. Now, let's get on with episode 49.
Hello and welcome to The Crownsman Show. Today, our guest is Keaton Turner. He is the president, founder of Turner Mining Group, which is a mining contractor out of the U.S. Hi, Keaton. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing great, Jared. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're noticing over here in Canada, we're getting a lot more U.S. Guests from the U.S. So it's good to have you, even though it's not in person anymore.
Yeah, I know. I wish we could do this in person. I've gotten a lot better at using Zoom here lately.
Yeah, well, it's really funky for me because I don't know if you're on a secondary camera, but I actually have a camera, so I look at the camera like I'm looking at you, but I actually can't see you. So it's like a phone conversation for me. So I have to listen really close to see when the guest wraps up. So if I interrupt you, that's why.
Not a problem.
The company's actually fairly new. When I first went on your website and was checking out, I thought one of these companies had been around for 50 years. So good on you for the branding of it. But a couple clicks through, you see, it's actually a fairly new company. When did you start the Turner?
Yeah, so we started 3 years ago in March, and so we're just over a little over 3-year-old company. I started when I was 27. I thought, man, I'm ready to make the leap and do this thing. So it's been a wild but very fun ride over the last few years.
That's pretty young to start a mining contracting company. And what sort of made you want to go into down that road? I mean, it's a very competitive industry, for sure. So what made you make that choice?
I had some experience in mining. I worked for my uncle in his company, and we had some mining clients, and so had dipped my toe in that water a little bit. And then, later on, I started to notice every site that I went to, the folks were older. And I'm going to try to say this in a nice way. Obviously, all experienced, but the people working at the plants were older. The people managing the sites were older. The people running equipment were older. And one day I ran across a statistic that said the average age of the miner in the U.S. was 52 years old. And so
Wow.
I really thought to myself, man, over the next 10 years, there's going to be, people leaving the industry, and all that experience and knowledge is going to leave with them. And so, I kind of just saw a white space. I thought if I could build a professional services company now while I'm young, I've got the chance to take a swing for the fences while I'm young. And I don't know, it just thought it made sense on paper, and so I gave it a shot.
So when you opened that, I saw some information on your website as well. Did you make an active effort to recruit younger talent? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you have some people that have all the experience on your team, but did you actively pursue people who are newer in the industry to join your team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say a few different things. One of my favorite sayings is the best players play. And if you're a talented 21-year-old, you should get the spot instead of someone that's been doing it for 20 years. And so, yeah, we have our first employee. His name's Albert. He is an old, rough East Kentucky coal miner, and so he's one of the guys that has the experience and helps teach some of these younger folks. But yeah, absolutely. I think what differentiates us, I've always said to our staff, we're building a machine here. This is not a 5-year or 10-year play, build a company up and sell it. We're really trying to build a machine full of people that want to be with us, until retirement. And so what better than an 18 or 20-year-old kid who, I can get 30, 40 years out of. I think that's cool.
Right. And that it's an interesting thing, because one of the statistics you mentioned the statistics of the average age of miners in the U.S., but the other statistic is how much less time people spend at any given company now. So when you're hiring in that younger age category, there's obviously going to be just based on the data, there's going to be a retention challenge. Have you actively put things in place, sort of a culture in the company, or a way that you can hopefully keep a certain percentage of that younger demographic for that 30 to 40 years?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask that question. They're like, how do you keep young kids, how do you keep their attention on your company? And how do you plan to keep young kids there for 30 years? Millennials are impatient people. I'm a millennial. I'm super impatient. I started at 27. I don't want to wait 20 more years to start something. We've got a lot of people that are that way. And so, yeah, we've had to adapt a little bit. Culture is a big part of what we do. We don't get it right every day, but we're super focused on it. I think if you look at our marketing and you look at what we're doing with social media, shouting out our people, really making our people in the field the heroes of our story. It'd be super easy for me, the guy with the last name on everything, to be the star of the show. It's not what I want. I'm on here doing this with you, and we do our own podcast, but I talk more about our people and how awesome some of these young people are, and how amazing it is to see some old guys teaching young guys when just a few years ago they hated the young guys. So it's a challenge to keep attention on this next generation. They'll leave somewhere for $1 more, or they'll leave somewhere where they get a shot quicker. But yeah, we've had to get creative to figure out how to keep these talented young ones happy.
Do you think, now I'm in your age category as well, so I can't speak for someone who's 54 years old, but do you think, though, that when someone's older and they've got that experience, it might be that initial, the rookie comes in, it's human nature, but as they start to collaborate and they start to share their knowledge and their wisdom about the industry, do you think it adds value also to their work? I mean, it seems like that would become more fulfilling. I mean, I played hockey, and getting a chance to coach a little bit. I wasn't a very good coach, admittedly, but it was very, just a little bit of it was quite neat to be able to share some of that back. Does it add that sense of fulfillment to your older staff? Do you get a sense of that?
Absolutely. I think maybe not all of them, but I think I've seen light bulbs come on for a lot of our older folks who they just say, man, hanging around the younger people make me feel younger. It's wild when you're 55 and you got a crew of 25-year-olds, you kind of feel like you're 25 again, with some more bumps and bruises and scars. But it's really fun to see. I always tell the story of Albert. He was the first employee I just mentioned. 4 or 5 years ago, I would send him a crew of young people, 20-year-olds, raw talent, didn't know anything. He would fire the whole crew without a doubt. Give it 2 weeks, the whole crew is fired. I finally told Albert, I said, Albert, if you keep firing all the people, we're not going to have a company. And so, he finally started, one day it clicked with one of the young 18-year-old farm boys he had. And he saw light in that kid. And he said, wow, if I can train this one kid to do the job he's doing now, maybe these young people aren't all worthless. And so it's been really cool to see guys like Albert and Tim, and we got some older guys that have a lot of fun training and coaching and mentoring, and taking on the younger guys. It's fun.
On the flip side of it, you said you're a millennial, I'm a millennial. That impatience that we sort of seem streamlined into our age demographic. Someone like an Albert who's on your team, how often is he used to sort of almost the bearer of bad news? No, this is the way it has to be. This is the process. I think back of Alexander the Great. He used to have this old general who would tell him all the reasons that something wouldn't work, or no, all the reasons of how they would do it, all the strategy that was going in place. So he'd know that that's what the other side was going to do, and then he'd do the exact opposite. Is there a little bit of that, having that sort of this older influence that one holds you back sometimes, but also sort of gives you an idea to sort of almost do the opposite and generate a new way of doing something?
Yeah, I think so. I want people around me specifically that are going to tell me no, and going to tell me why things won't work. I'm a pretty optimistic guy.
Hmm.
Usually I want to charge straight ahead at something. I want people that say, "Hey, wait a second, young guy, you don't know what's going to happen here. I've been here and done it. I've seen it." I love that.
Yeah.
That's what my uncle did for me, and I learned a lot from him when he would do those things. And I've really tried to put myself around people now, people that are in my core group, who don't think like I do, and who will tell me, on the days that I have some crazy idea, "Hey, you're an idiot. Why don't you calm down for a second? Let's try this thing over here." And I think young people, if they really open up their eyes and their mind to learning every day, I think there's a ton of that out there that you can gain a lot of really valuable experience from. It's just hard to get young people all the time to want to learn.
Right. But when you do, kind of what you're saying is, when you do, it's just, you've got, if you've got someone who's hungry to learn at 50, or you've got someone that's hungry to learn at 25 years old, you've got a huge runway of experience that they can put into play. It's pretty amazing. The other thing that Turner has done, and I want to get into, I wanted to get into the nuts and bolts of your company as well, some of the projects you've done, but you can't really talk about Turner Mining without talking about your social media presence. You've got, I think, 19,000 followers on LinkedIn or something crazy for a company that's 3 years old in the mining industry. That's amazing. It really is.
I appreciate that.
So, talk about that approach. That obviously was an active choice you made from the very beginning to be so engaged online.
Yeah, for me, it's about attention. When you're a young company, it's hard to go get those first couple contracts. It's hard to get someone to give you a shot. You start gaining a little bit of traction. What are you going to do with the traction? In our business, you're either growing or you're dying. And I would much rather be growing than dying. And so from day one, for me, it was about getting all the attention in the room. We want to build this machine to go build a company that withstands way past me, for sure. But I think when you look at companies that are successful that don't have the marketing presence or don't have the attention, of all their peers or all their vendors or all their suppliers, things seem to just work a little bit better when people are talking about you.
Yeah.
Dealers want to do business with you. Clients want to hire you. People want to work for you. If you're in the shadows, people don't really do that. Dealers don't pull strings for you. People don't stand in line to come work for you. Clients don't give you the nudge when you're dollar for dollar to the other guy. So, we make it about attention. We have fun with it. We want to be the sexiest company in the space, and so that's what we're trying to do.
Right. It's quite interesting because, and you touched on the different values that it adds, and that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask is, what is the main value that you see, that tangible value? Is it all of it? Is it attracting new talent, putting yourself out there so the dealers are more willing to work with you and give you better terms? Is it actually getting in the door to bid on these contracts? These are obviously, these projects you do, they put out for they're put out for bidding.
Mhm.
So where is that main value that you find, or does it span across all three pretty evenly?
Well, we've seen the value, spread across all three as we've grown as a company. Early on, all I wanted was the attention so that people would want to come work for us. It
Mm,
wasn't about the dealers or the clients or anything like that. I knew
right.
if we were going to be successful in this space and build a successful company, we had to have the people want to come work for us. And so it started with social media. I went to where the attention was, and that was Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then as people have started to flock and put applications in, I think we get something like 25 applications a day, was the
Wow.
last stat I heard from our HR team. So once that started to happen, then the banks started to talk about you, because they see you on LinkedIn. Oh, we'd love to bank with you, we'd love to give you money. Well, at the time I was 27. What 27-year-old can go get money to go buy $1 million machines? And then,
Right.
so the more attention, then clients say, hey, we see what you're doing, we'd love to have you out. And then dealers say, hey, why don't you try some of these new machines for free for a while, since you guys have all this attention.
Right.
So it's snowballed as we've done more of it. But early on, I just wanted the people. I knew if we won the people game, we would win.
Right. You realize, unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, depends on how you approach it. The other mining contractors are now sitting here taking notes while we're having this discussion.
Well, and the beauty of it is, and I feel very strongly about this, we give all of our secrets away.
Hmm.
I find, and that's probably the biggest secret of all. I find the most value in giving this stuff away for free, because I think if people do it, they'll see it actually works. And
Yes.
I'm not a very smart guy. I'll tell you that. I'm probably the dumbest one in the whole office here. But when you see stuff work, you double and triple down on it. And so we're telling everybody it works, and knowing that our clients, our employees, they want to hear what we're doing is working.
Yeah. It's actually, and I will add on that. It's the opposite effect of people. Actually, I was having this conversation yesterday with someone that's like, when you see all the car dealerships all beside each other, someone pointed out to me that there was another show that was similar. We're doing some more in the energy sector. And someone showed me a show, and I said, it's we need those shows, because if we're the only one doing it, it doesn't hold the same value. When other people start doing it, now it becomes commonplace and people are comfortable with those platforms and those streams. It actually helps you, as long as you have a good product. If you don't have a good product, if it gets you in the
Absolutely.
door with a dealer and then you run their machine off a bank, well, that's not going to be very
Well,
helpful. But
and also, Jared, this stuff only works for a period of time. You know,
mhm,
uh, Tumblr used to be a thing.
yeah,
Facebook used to be way more popular than it was. Instagram has even lost a bunch of organic reach. So things come and go, and we got to think about the next thing.
yeah.
We're on this thing called TikTok, where it's it historically has been a lot of young, very young people too young
Are
for
you
us to even
dancing?
hire. I
Oh.
I am not dancing on TikTok yet, but why not try it and invest a little
Yeah,
time in it? It could be the thing in 5 years, and we want to be one of the people
absolutely.
that puts our flag in the ground early. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I can't. I actually don't know. I don't know Aaron Witt, but I know of him, and I feel like I can't really rave about your social media presence without, because I know I've seen a podcast with you and him. I know he's been involved from the beginning, when you started the company, and so I kind of want to plug him, because I think he does some great, amazing stuff online. Like he's got pictures of machines running. He's going all over the U.S. It's really neat stuff. And he was with you right from the very beginning, doing some of your content development and things like that. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been watching the Michael Jordan documentary, and early on in
Mm,
the documentary, Michael Jordan said they shouldn't say the name Michael Jordan without Scottie Pippen. And the same thing's true with Witt. Witt's a good friend of mine. He's been a buddy before he ever started doing what he's doing now. We were friends. There's a few things. If we wouldn't have done them, we wouldn't exist today as a company. Aaron is
mm.
without a doubt one of them. He's really the reason why we had so much traction as early on as we did. There's no one, and I say this with 100%, there's no one better behind the camera than Aaron Witt. He's just super talented. he's a great guy. I can't say enough good things about him, but yeah.
Yeah, and he keeps it fun. I saw him post. I was on Instagram. He's driving along on a cat machine on their a dozer or something, and it's just fun to watch, and people respond to it. You know,
Well,
I
it's
sometimes
amazing when you have a personality like his
yeah
running a company, being a young guy. I mean, he's got all the ingredients for success.
yeah
He's there.
yeah, and it makes a big difference to have someone there that kind of, like you said, just off the get go, to have that sort of that depth, who understands the online world, like he does. It makes a big difference, you know. And we touched on a lot of things, but when it comes down to it, you are a mining contractor, and you did something I think I saw it on your website as well. You're across multiple states doing the contracting, and you said that you really did have a plan in place. Can you talk a little bit more about the strategy of the company, for actually providing services?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of our clients are, they're global companies. Most of them are owned internationally, so they're not American companies. And so I really saw the need for um, a professional services company that could do this coast to coast. When you talk about a Martin Marietta or a Vulcan Materials, aggregates suppliers, or even, you get into some specialty minerals and phosphates. These companies own multiple mines across the
Right.
US, and they own a lot more other places across the world. And so, our goal was, we don't want to work for you at one site. We don't want to work for you at all of your sites. It was a lofty goal. It's a lot harder to scale a business than most people realize, than I realized.
Mhm.
But these companies, I think, are just begging for a real professional service provider that they can count on wherever the work is.
Right. When you come into, we had Trans World Manufacturing on. They were talking a lot about because they're building transport equipment for cranes and things like that, and the different rules and regulations they need to follow from state to state. That must be a major part of what you're doing too, is just learning the regulations and safety rules. And I mean, a California to a Kentucky, and that it must be vastly different when you're trying to work across all these states.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how many business agents we have across the country. We do a lot of work in California, and I always tell everyone, because everyone asks, how is it working in California? I consider California a different country, not a different state. It is that different.
Really?
And then you compare, that's far West Coast. You compare California to places like Virginia or West Virginia, where the state itself requires a whole different certification to be on mine sites. There's a Division
Oh,
of Mining and Minerals, DMME, Division of Mining, Minerals and Energy, or something like that. And because of all the early coal in that part of the country, the states decided they were going to make things a little more regulated than Florida, for example. So it's not only do you have the demographic differences and the
hmm.
cultural differences in the states you work, New York and Indiana and Kentucky, you have a lot of different hoops you got to jump through.
And how do you manage that? I mean, I want to go back to, I know you had some experience, like you said, with your uncle's company, but now you're 3 years in to put that into scale. I mean, how have you even done that? Is it about finding people in those regions that can do it, that know those systems? Is it you just stay up till 3 in the morning every night reading the regulations? How do you actually get your company to comply with all these different rules and regulations across the state?
Well, one of my rules is I always hire people that are smarter than I am. So if I can do the job better than they can, I really don't need them. And so you look around our office, they're all people that are smarter. We got Harvard MBA guys, we've got business guys from the university here, all mining engineers. I don't know how many mining engineers we've got. I want people that are smarter. But then we all have to hustle and grind for it, right? Because we're fairly young staff. We've got some senior folks, but fairly young staff. And so I think you pair talent with passion, it's a dangerous combination. These people will work 80 hours a week and enjoy it. And you come in here, I came in here on a Sunday here a while back to get something that I'd left in the office. There was like 3 or 4 people here in the office working it out on a Sunday. So you know, we say yes to opportunities, and then we figure out all the other stuff later.
Right.
It doesn't always work out perfectly. I'm not going to lie to you. At a young age, growing a business, I've made more $1 million mistakes than I care to admit, especially to an audience. But that's
we got
the
time.
truth. It's I don't think you have time for all of them, but that's the truth. I think even seasoned business pros would tell you, if you're taking big swings all the time, and we are, I want to take big swings. You're not going to connect on every single one of them, and that's okay. We don't beat ourselves up over it. We learn from the mistake and we move on and try to get a little bit better.
Right. You said about, swinging for the big ones, and I want to get into, like I said, the nuts and bolts. What are some big projects that Turner Mining has done within the last few years? Is there a major one that stands out to you?
We have a few. We've got one that just ended here a few months back now. It was about an 18-month contract out in California. It was, I think at one time we had 90 people on that site, somewhere around there, 80, 90 people, running 24 hours a day, in the mountains, treacherous terrain, high production goals. That was wild. We've got one up kind of on the Michigan-Canada border, way up North Michigan. And we work around the clock there with double shift and dealing with the snow and the frost. And, I think more than anything, you add a bunch of people to a site, it makes it challenging because you have to, the more people you have to manage, the more problems there are. It's just the way it works. But then when you pair that with tough terrain or tough weather conditions, it can be a recipe for disaster real quick.
Right. And then, the technology aspect of mining is so rapidly, maybe not as rapid as, let's say, the tech sector in California was 10 years ago, that kind of thing. But it is changing. The need for, everything to be optimized is in high demand, especially for the large companies. Is there anything specific that stands out where you had to work with some of the new technology or integrate the new technology into the contract? Any projects that stand out in that stream?
I think one of the things that's changed the mining space the most over the last, we'll say 5 to 10 years, I think drones have played a huge role. When I first came into the industry back 2010, 11, 12, a lot of people, you always do these initial and final surveys to figure out what kind of volume of earth you've moved. And so a lot of folks, you hired a local surveying company, they'd go out there with a rover and they'd shoot, a few points, and you'd get close, and then you'd argue with the client over 3 or 5% of volume. Drones have really changed that. And it's wild to think, we can buy a few drones, kind of leave them in central locations around the country, and fly all of our sites up the East Coast and all of our sites up the West Coast and do some volume calculations and have a third party process the data. And the customer now is like, wow, I can take this data and, my shareholders are happy because I'm doing things that are, mandated. Drones have made it a lot easier. There's obviously a ton of other, you got GPS, and you're starting to see some automation with dozers and stuff like that. But the thing we use the most, I think, that's changed how we do business is the drone program.
Is that something that was is mandated by the mining, the company, or is that something you suggest, or is it sort of a bit of both depending on the project? How does that? It usually is a change to have.
Yeah. Usually it's a bit of both. We obviously want to keep ourselves honest and fair. We don't want to bill the client for more volume than what we've mined. And we also don't want the client taking advantage of us. And so there's this real fine line, you invoice everything off of truck counts for the most part in the mining industry, and or tonnage run across the belt scale or something like that. But there needs to be a check and balance. Most of our contracts, because of our, our clients are publicly traded companies, most of them, they're required to do these checks and balances and verify volumes and verify weights. And so, you'll see scales, belt scales calibrated quarterly. And we do drone flights as often as every 2 weeks across some sites that require it. But it's definitely something that helps keep us both on the straight and narrow, especially on the long-term contracts with big volume.
Yeah. I mean, you get 3 years in. I'm sure there's some projects you've run into some hiccups. So I'll do the last I always like to touch on a few projects when we're doing it. Is there any one that stands out for you that you went, that was more challenging than it looked like on paper? Everyone is a little bit different, but is there any one that really stands out?
Oh man, I could list several, but for the sake of time, I won't. But it's funny. We were in a budget meeting yesterday with our operations team and some folks here in the office. We were in a budget meeting, and we looked at one of our contracts we've had for 2 years now. We're in the third year, and this is a simple contract. We're mining sand out on the East Coast, and should be very simple, right? The client calls on New Year's Day a couple years ago and says, "Hey, we need to start in like a week," and this was like 20 machines, 20 people, and it was a feat to get it done over the holidays. So we got started and put some management in place, and I just thought, they'll take care of it, right? And this is something you learn as a young business owner. You got to watch everything very closely. I had a guy that I knew, and I thought, they'll take care of it. 8 months in, we are at a loss of $1 million on what I thought was one of the most simple projects. I mean, you're digging it and hauling it. We're not doing anything fancy, no drilling and blasting, anything like that. And ever since then, I've always said, people are my most expensive mistakes. When you trust the wrong person to do what you think is right, you have to make a system and a process to ensure there's a check and a balance to make sure it's right. And that's something that I had to figure out the hard way on several projects, not just that one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty applicable across the board in any business. You've got an interesting, for me, it's interesting background because you've worked for your uncle's company, so you gain that experience. What about, it's quite a feat to be able to manage that and to manage a company of, crews of 90 plus people going on one project, and then you're doing sand mining over on another project. There's scalability, there's state by state, there's management team, there's all that stuff in place. What's your background that sort of you think equipped you to be able to manage on that scale?
Well, I said it the other night on, I think, a different podcast, or maybe something I was doing on Instagram. I'm really not a mining guy. I'm more of just a sales guy. I think about marketing. I think about attention. I love going on sites and meeting with clients and trying to get them to make a decision that I want them to make. It's like a game to me. I think what has allowed me to do what we're doing now at the scale we're doing it is I just woke up one day, I was 27 years old, and I thought, my life is a third of the way over. I'm going to die, when I'm, hopefully 80. I live to be 80. That's a pretty good life. I'm going to die one day and have regrets for not swinging for the fences. And so I still do that today. We've done well for the first 3 years, better than I thought we would ever do in 3 years. We were in Forbes magazine, some really cool stuff, but we're still swinging for the fences. I want to go out with a bang someday and not have any regrets. And so I think, when you take big swings, you're going to miss sometimes, like I said earlier, but being around people that make you better. I'm a big vibe guy. I always say, positive vibes. I want people.
I've seen that. Yeah.
I want people that are happy, passionate. I want people to come in the office and, not hate their job or hate their life. I would hire passion over experience on paper or an education. I hire passion every single time. And so, I think that's what's allowed us kind of the early traction that we've had.
Right. Did you leading up to that, did you get, did you go to get any training in the management and, all that sort of thing, or has it just been on the ground experience for you?
Well, I went to college, and if I could do it over again, I don't know that I would go to college, and it shocks a lot of people when I say that. I got a construction management degree. I loved the university. I'm an Indiana State University grad. I loved it. I met my wife in college. I've got some lifelong buddies that I went to college with. But for me, I learned by doing it, man. My uncle, he threw me in and kind of gave me the reins at a young age, 23 years old, I think. And he really exposed me to all the bad, which is the right thing to do, and he exposed me to all the good that can come out of all the bad. And so, I tell young people these days, it's insane to go to college and come out with a bunch of student debt and not really know what you want to do, or not have tasted or tried a few different things. I learned more in the 6 months after college than I did in all 4 years of college. So I just learned by doing it, trying it, failing, trying again, see what happens.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to identify, and I'm so curious, because I notice a lot of people that are passionate and that went, they've gotten various degrees, and in addition to being passionate, that's a huge distinction I'll make. They seem to manage companies very well, and I'm always curious how much it just gives you some sort of structure to know what to. It almost just to understand processes just a little bit quicker than maybe someone that doesn't have that experience. And I don't know. I'm always curious. I wish you could quantify it somehow, but like that experience of working for your uncle, how do you quantify how valuable that was? If you had, worked at Starbucks since you were 15 and then tried to go in the industry, I mean, it would be just hopeless.
Yeah.
I always find it interesting, the amount of experience it leads up. Even at 27, you still had quite a bit of experience from the age of 23 to then, in a similar industry anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I would recommend playing with someone else's money before you play with your own money. Of course, my uncle, I thought I'd be there forever. And so I treated it like my own money anyway. But,
Right.
Some people say, well, if you started when you were 30, you would have had those 3 years where maybe you would have made more money starting at 30. For me, it's not even about the money. The experiences, that $1 million loss, that's $1 million lesson I'll never forget, and I can teach that now to a bunch of other people. And I learned a lot of lessons from my uncle that costs a lot of money. Everything in the mining industry, our bankers say, mining is a really interesting business. You just add a couple zeros to all the numbers because it's just so much bigger. Everything's so much more expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all about paying for the lessons, and I'd rather pay for them when I'm young so that I can, ride the wave for a while.
I always like to drill down into things, and there's two things as you're talking really through this whole episode, and I'm curious about how you actually feel from day one when you open the company. Are you nervous, excited, all of it? I mean, different people have different emotions when they're starting something, and when you get that, oh, we've got $1 million loss. What's the actual feelings that kind of bubble up for you when you're going through those experiences?
Two great questions. No one ever asked me, what's it feel like to start? I was terrified, honestly. 27, a mortgage, a young wife with two kids. I just had a kid, 1.5-year-old little boy at the time, and then I had one on the way. When
You're
I
crazy.
started. So and we had a dog. Everything you can have going on in life, we had going on. But I knew as life went on, we would just get more busy. The kids get into sports, they get into high school, and it would be harder for me to take big swings. And so we did it. My wife is an angel, and she supported me. We, for the first 8 months, I got more doors shut in my face and more people laughing at me. I even had friends that, are like, dude, you're crazy. What are you doing? Because I left an amazing thing. It was a family company that was doing really well. I had a dream job. I got paid well. They treated me awesome. I wanted to scratch an itch, and so it was terrifying. There's a illustration out there somewhere that shows the life of an entrepreneur or a startup. It's
Yeah.
like up, down, around, that's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
a million different emotions. When you win, there's no better high. When you lose, there's no worse low. Super lonely, and a lot of people probably say depressed. Probably depressed for 12 months. I don't really think of it like that. I just think I had to take 12 months to figure it out. So yeah, it's a wild ride for sure. Definitely a wild ride.
And part of the reason I'm asking these questions is, when in the pre-interview you said, we can be pretty open, and it is so. And I'm curious, I'll tell you something I've experienced is you're sort of in a haze at let's say for that 12-month period, as things are really tough. The doors are closing, 12 doors closed, but then one half open. So then you're like, okay, I got to keep going now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you look back from that 12-month and you realize, I don't know if the word's depression, or I don't know what it actually is, but you kind of look back, you went, man, it was actually harder on me. I've looked back and realized it was harder on me than I thought it was. When you're in it, you're kind of just in a haze. When you look back, you went, whoa, that was not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in a real dark place. I would say it was probably 18 months, really, because we had won our first job about 8 or 9 months in after starting the company, and the first job lost $30,000. It lost, I think it was a $300,000 job, so it lost 10%. And so I'm sitting here thinking, what am I doing? Not only did I not pay for my expenses, I cost myself 30 grand on the very first one. And so you can really quickly get in a dark place mentally. And there was other stuff going on at the time, and I just kept going. There's nothing else. You always hear people say, just don't stop, just keep going, one's put in front of the other. There's nothing else you can do. What am I going to do? I'm gonna not keep trying and end up homeless or have to go work. I didn't want to go work for somebody else again after starting my own thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm open and honest about it because I kind of want to give other people hope, but B, it doesn't sting so bad to have $1 million loss when you know your purpose. And my purpose isn't to stack millions of dollars over my life. I mean, yeah, it's a goal. I'd love to do that. It's fun. I like money. I like nice things, but my purpose is a lot bigger than that. And I'm all about losing in the short term to win in the long term. And I think the more people we impact in a positive way, the more, our motto is we're trying to make the mining industry a better place. The more we do that, the better I feel about it. Happier I am in life.
I have to say, Keaton, I'm very happy though to be and have that, because obviously it's when someone comes on here and they're honest, it frustrates me, quite honestly, when I see people come on that have started companies and they almost bypass. They say about keep working, keep going, but different personalities also are applicable, and people, it can get quite dark and lonely and all those things. And if you at least know that that's part of it going in, when it happens to you, you have a chance of getting through it, because most companies fail within the first 18 months. That's when they go, because everybody has to experience that. It's the only way to get it. And so, I think it's just, I know for sure there'll be people that watch it that just go, oh, okay, so you don't have to be all positive, because sometimes it's just not.
What I would add here is you're never ready, right? Like my mom and dad even question it. They're like, well, do you think you're ready? You're 27. Why don't you wait a few years to get some more experience? I'm never going to be ready.
Never.
I could be 40 years old, amazing experience, have $1 million saved up in the bank. I'm still not ready. You're going to have to go through those bumps and bruises and take the first 18 months on the chin. And guess what? The losses only get bigger after the first 8.
The stakes get higher.
Yeah. Losing 30 grand now, that's no big deal. I'd rather see that happen than a lot of different things, but you've just got to get through it. And I think the motivating factor for me is knowing how short life is. You know, we're pretty young guys. We may not have another 40 years of life. So, you know, why
Yeah.
not go for it? What do we have to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap up, I want to do a quick drill back down into something specific. Those first 8 months, when you have a company like yours, you have to get financed. You have to be bidding on jobs.
Yep.
You need equipment. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be put in place. And can you just touch on what that actually took in those first 8 to 12 months?
Yeah, it took a lot more than I thought it would take. You know, obviously I had been in the business, but you don't realize when you're working for a company that has already been established. My uncle's company was successful. People knew him. There was
Yeah.
brand there. You know, when you go out on your own, you don't realize no one cares about you. No, you know, the buddies that you have at the dealerships, they want to see a balance sheet. You know, the bankers want to see some inflow, not outflow. You know, your friends, they want to see you when you're at your high, not at your low. at least the sketchy friends anyway.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it was all I had to deliver results. So
Mhm.
the people that came to work for us, I had to deliver results from a culture perspective. You know, we're going to win jobs. I'm going to make you the hero of the story. The bankers,
Right.
they want to see results. They're going to get paid back on their line of credit. So I got to go figure out how to make a profit and pay them back. You know, the dealers, they want to see results. Take care of our machines. You know, you're going to rent them because you can't afford to buy them at 27. And so, you know, I'm a natural salesman. I'm always selling people why to come work here, why to hire us to do your work, you know, why you should lend your money to us from a banking perspective, or your machines to us from a renting or leasing perspective. And so, you know, it's one step in front of the other, and you take small bites. You know, you get 5 guys to come work for you. You go do one job well, you make 30, 40, 50 grand. You don't go buy a new truck with it. Instead, you invest that. You give it back to the banker, you show him some goodwill, and then the line of credit goes up a little bit, you know? And so
Right.
I think you know, to get started, we got a line of credit. I think it was $300,000, you know, and I had developed a relationship with the banker. We'd played golf and he took a shot on us. It's not super typical for most bankers to give a line of credit to 27-year-olds like that. And so we got a little bit lucky there. And, you know, as we've produced, we've kept the profits in the company and, you know, keep turning, and they increase the line of credit. Dealers start giving you more machines.
Mhm.
We're still not where we want to be with any of it, but I don't think we ever will be.
Right. Yeah. No, Keaton, I think we covered actually a lot of ground in this, and it's a lot of important information. And it's always important for me when someone comes on, especially someone that's had success. The company's been around for a few years, but you know, as a young company, you're a young business owner. You've got quite a large team to deal with, and I'm just glad in this episode we were able to kind of zoom in and out on the different aspects of your company. It's a lot of good information. So thanks for coming on. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Absolutely. It was a blast. Always fun.
Okay. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thanks, Keaton, for coming on the show. He said at the pre-interview, he was very clear. We don't have secrets. Basically, ask what you want, and it's nice when a guest says that and then lives up to it. So we really appreciate it. We appreciate you watching the show, supporting the show, and we're always looking for more guests. We're looking for more topics to expand into more industries. We have our partner show now with Mining Now, mining specific show with CIM. So you get all access to their network. We have the Crownsman show, and we have Crownsman Energy. So we've got lots of content coming out. Please keep watching, subscribe, sharing, doing all the things you do that make it possible for us to keep going. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can also head on over to crownsman.com/donations to help support the production of The Crownsman Show. We have 2 donation options available, the $5 monthly subscription option and the support heavy industry one-time donation option. These are all through PayPal. Again, that's crownsman.com/donations. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you on the next episode.